The following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin.
Hey, I'm Christine.
And I'm Steve.
And this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. It's so great to see your face again. It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
How did your reading go last week?
My reading went well. Yes, we are rolling out this show, this one-man show. We haven't talked about it on here, but...
No, we haven't. But I went, just so the listeners know, I went to Steve's, I think it was, what, 3 weeks ago? 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I went to your place and was there for one of your table readings for your one-man show. And it was quite, it left a deep impression on me.
Tell me what it brought up in your mind and thoughts and heart.
That I really can relate, and I think a lot of our listeners, anybody listening, can relate to the fact that a lot of us seem to long for a place that we miss without really knowing what that is. Like, we long for this, but it's like a homesickness for a place that we can't go back to, or a place that we haven't found. And your story of your life and your journey, and hearing about your heartaches, your heartbreaks, your joys, your passions, told in stories that are poignant and sweet and endearing and loving and funny. And I really enjoyed it. I felt very special to be able to be part of it and meet your lovely friends. Your friends are amazing.
I have a good group of friends. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Everybody was welcoming and sweet, and I loved it. So yeah.
Thank you for the lovely reflection. This is the first, I guess, time I've actually anybody's mentioned it publicly. So
well, I've done it without your consent.
Yeah, so I've been outed, but
you have. But no, why? I would say, let's shout it from the mountaintops. It's going to be an incredible show, and I will be the first one there on opening night.
All right.
I just love it. I think it's amazing. Yeah. I also, think that we should talk further about possibly filming it very cinematically, very, like the lighting, the stuff that you're all talking about while you were reading. And I think that we should at least to have something for you. Plus, you can always do something online with it, and you never know. Yeah. Make a sizzle for your show.
Yeah, for sure. I want to do a reel that I could present and see if we can start farming it out to theaters around the country and get myself out there.
Why not?
Still in the early stages, though. We're still doing what I call living room readings. And
I don't know.
Anyone with a living room can host me.
I will say, though, that I'll host you. You should come to my place. I'll get some people together.
All right. We want that.
I think that you're a lot further along than you think you are.
Well, that's good
I think you're more hesitant, but I think you just, fine tune your pops, buzzes, and whistles, and slim them down for sure. I think that you want to put too much in. I think it's all really about you and not about the presentation of everything else.
Yeah, everybody says keep it simple.
Yeah, but I think it's lovely, and I can't wait for you to actually see it in realization in real world time. And
yeah, well, it's happening.
I love it. Well, good job.
Thanks. Well,
Uh,
tell me about our guest, because I have not met this guest. Shall we bring her
yeah,
on?
she actually came as a recommendation from Janice.
Okay.
What? Oh, shoot. I always go to say the names of her podcasts, and I never can remember them right when I go to say them. So, Sex and the Solo Girl, I think, is
Okay.
one, and then the other one's about broken hearts and breakups and moving on. But Janice has referred this guest to us, and let me tell you a little about her before we bring her on. Her name also is Janice Selbie. She is a counselor and author of Divorcing Religion, who opens up about being deceived by a sociopathic con man who stole both her heart and her money. Janice shares how her background, religious upbringing, and truth and trust left her vulnerable, and how she turned her pain into purpose. She now helps others heal through her podcast, her book, and her private practice at divorcingreligion.com. Let's welcome Janice Selbie. She is going to tell us all about her experience with how he stole her heart and her money.
Hi, Janice.
Hi.
Welcome.
Janice, welcome to the show, girl. How are you?
Hi from British Columbia. Good. I'm happy to join you both. And I can't wait till Steve brings his show to Canada.
I know.
Host me in your living room.
We'll do it.
I love it. Well, welcome, Janice. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little about yourself beyond what I was saying in your intro.
Sure. Yes. So I grew up in a very religious home. And so I think I was primed to trust people. And I went through most of my life actually till I got to be about 40. And at that point, that's when I started deconstructing the views that I had been indoctrinated with from my very well-meaning parents.
Yeah.
And then I ended up divorcing my husband and my religion. So that's quite a bit to go through all at once. And
Yeah,
then
girl.
it was kind of like, I'm out in the open. I'm going to have another teenage, like an adolescence that I never had before. Woohoo, we're going to live it up. We're going to do all these things. But there is some danger that can come with that when we're not expecting it. I mean, I had only been with my husband for almost 20 years. I hadn't been dating anyone or looking at, for another relationship. And then to suddenly be thrust into the online world. And I mean, I'm getting unsolicited pictures of male genitalia. Like, it was just shocking, because also remember, I had been quite religious too. So, and here I am on my dating profiles, trying to be quite honest about myself and expecting and thinking that the men
You're going to get the
there
same.
are also going to be honest. And I'm sure there are some out there, but yeah, it was challenging.
Well, I think it is very challenging for people who have been in long-term relationships and marriages throughout their 20s and 30s, and even, part of their 40s, and even some people into their 50s. And then all of a sudden, they find themselves not wanting to be alone, wanting to find love, and thinking, well, everybody's talking about this online thing, and it seems to be where everybody goes to find somebody. And it is very frightening. It can be very overwhelming. And what we try to strive here on this podcast to do is to teach people about these pitfalls and how to protect yourself and how love can be found out there. It takes a little bit of trial and error and understanding. So that's why we have you here today, because I know that you went full force into dating and you met somebody. Please tell us about this.
I did. Well, the first fellow that I met and I ended up moving in with and having a longer term relationship with, that felt amazing. So he owned a high-end luxury travel business, and he had lots of money. I was pretty much used to poverty. So being with this person really expanded me and opened my eyes to a life that I didn't know I could ever participate in. And I thought we had a wonderful relationship. It was more of an open type relationship, but we lived together. But then shockingly to me, he pulled the rug out from under me and he said, "Nope, I've met somebody else. move along. And so then I was extremely brokenhearted, just plunged into the depths of grief. I was really like blinded by it. I didn't see it coming. And so then I moved from this high-end luxury condo downtown. I moved into this grimy, illegal basement suite on the outskirts of town because that's all I could afford. And my days and nights just seemed to consist of weeping. And I've lost a ton of weight only because I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. I really was deeply depressed and saddened by it. And so then I gave myself a few months where, I wasn't going to look at anything online, wasn't interested. I needed to try and rebuild myself. And then eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to go back online and see what other fish are out there. And this person showed up in my feed, and I think he had showed up earlier at some point, but I had just ignored him, but he was persistent. And he seemed kind of funny, like kind of charming. There's that word. Remember, to charm is a verb. So he seemed charming. He was older than the previous one, so that he seemed more mature. And so he said he would really like to meet up. And so I would only go and meet people for the first time at a pub, like in a very public place. I would always buy my own meal. And then I remember I found him quite engaging. He was a great storyteller. And then when we were leaving, he asked if he could have a kiss. And I said, no, but I'll give you a hug. And I gave him a hug. That's what I was comfortable with. And then I went back to my place. And then, he was messaging me quite regularly from that time on. And I did find he was a little bit pushier physically than I would have liked, but I didn't hold back on that,
What do you think drew you into him? What made you really start to turn then? Because I know, because I've been in this type of relationship, but I would like our listeners to hear what happens in that transition.
Right. Yeah. There can be such a vulnerability when we are the dumpee rather than the dumper, feeling like we are unlovable. Who would ever find us attractive again or want to be with us? Especially, once you're over 40, you become really super aware of just not being as young as you once were. And so that, I think I was vulnerable in that way. And he also was very likable. He told great stories, and he seemed quite generous. Eventually I introduced him to my family, and they also thought that he was a terrific guy. Like, we didn't have warning signs at that point. And then when we'd only been dating about 3 or 4 months, he said, and he was living in a neighboring town. I forgot that part. He was living in a neighboring town. So he was coming in every weekend to visit. And we were eventually then becoming intimate and just getting to know each other better and better. And then he messaged me and said, oh, I have to talk to you right away. And so we talked on the phone, and he said that he had lost his job. It was unexpected. He worked high up in construction and management, like site supervisor type thing. And so he asked if he could move in with me, because he wanted to leave that town and move to the town where I was so he could be with me. And I was uncomfortable with that for sure. I felt like that was too fast. I was not interested in that. But he mentioned what a hardship it would be for him to, have to stay there, keep driving back and forth, just applying, the pressure. And so I agreed. And so he moved in. I was living with my daughter at the time. She was maybe 18 or 19. And so it was a small place, this small grimy basement suite that we were living in. So he moved in, and then it was nice to have his added income into our situation. So then we were able to start looking for another place. And it was pretty easy having him there. Like, he was easy to get along with. But one red flag that came up as soon as he moved in, whenever he would go to call his wife, which he told me they were separated, they'd been separated for years, divorce was supposed to be forthcoming. Whenever he was going to call her, he would leave.
Mm.
And I said, why are you leaving? Talk to her here. And he'd say, oh no, she makes me so mad. She pushes all my buttons, and I don't want you to hear me yelling at her. And I was like, I prefer you made the call here. I'm not going to listen in, but
I think,
and so
I think his behavior about his ex should have been our biggest flag.
Oh yeah.
Women here, men here, when exes disrespect the other ex like tremendously like that, that's a big
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
And so he said he didn't particularly talk poorly about her, but he did say that she would push his buttons and he would lose his temper. And he never lost his temper around me or with my daughter. There was one time when we were dating before he moved in, when he still lived in the other place, in the other town, and I went to visit him out there, and he was taking me for a drive through the country. I don't know, and I think I felt he was speeding or something was going on, and it made me feel a little bit unsafe. And I asked him, would he please slow down? And he really surprised me, because he mocked me, and he had never done that. And that was the only time in the whole relationship he ever did that. But he's like, oh, you're whining, something like this. And I thought, that is bizarre, because I'm not whining. So I just tucked that one away, didn't do anything about it, didn't listen to my intuition. So so anyway, yeah, then he moves in, and he's not anytime he's going to talk to his wife, he leaves. But then of course he'd go to Tim Hortons and bring back a coffee for me or something like that. He'd always have a nice way of coming back into the home after that. So we found another place in town that was bigger. And in fact, my other daughter was living in the basement suite. So we moved to the upstairs suite of this place where my other daughter was renting. And it was quite a nice arrangement. And things seemed to be going along well. My heart was definitely healing. I wasn't looking backwards anymore and thinking about the previous relationship that had left, that was such a train wreck. And so I felt like things were going well. My family liked him, even my relatives from out of town. When they'd come over, he would meet them. He got my mom a lovely Christmas present, and he was just full of stories. So everyone thought he was great. And he's showing me photos of his daughters. So they don't live in the town he lived in. They were several provinces away. They were half the country away in Ontario. Okay. We're in British Columbia. So he's always showing me photos of them. And I had said to him very specifically, well, you must have told them, or I want you to make sure. This was after he first moved in. I said, I don't want to be anybody's dirty secret. So you make it plain that we're together, and I expect you to be meeting with the divorce lawyer. That's the only way this happens. Oh yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's no problem. It's no problem at all. And he would go back home to the other province about maybe once every couple of months to see his kids. And because one was a tween, and then the other were in their later teens. And I thought, okay, I would want to be going back to see my kids if I lived far away. So I didn't think anything about it. But one time I did make a comment to him about, I just want to make sure that we both are on the same page with this relationship. This is our relationship. We are not dating other people. We are not seeing other people. And that means when you're back in Ontario, your ex is your ex. And he said, well, how do I know that you're not getting back together? And I said, well, I'm not. And I'm happy I'll facilitate an introduction if you want. You can check my phone, whatever. I have nothing to do with that person at all. And he said, well, I expect you to trust me. Give me that trust. Of course, I'm not. You're the one I want to be with. And yes, the divorce is moving forward. So we're taking all sorts of pictures of ourselves doing all these different traveling, different activities, and putting them on Facebook and everything. I wasn't hiding anything. And then in the end of 2019, he says that he had a dream job offer from a company back in Ontario. And he'd really like to take it, but he won't take it unless I'm willing to move there. So that would mean leaving one of my adult children behind, my elderly mother, my business. So I'd have to start everything over there.
How long were you together at this point?
Year and a half, maybe.
Okay.
And living
it's been a
together
while.
for a substantial amount of time.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm just trying to. I don't want to leave anything out. Yes, so that's he had.
Because I'm anticipating the other shoe's going to drop somewhere, so
Right.
you don't need to have all the play-by-play. We only have an hour to be together.
Okay.
What was the thing that turned it for you?
Well, he said, move out there with me. And so I said I would. I told my mom, I told people online. At that time, I was preparing to host a big conference in 2020, the first of its kind in Vancouver in the spring. And so I told him, all right, let's wait till I host this big conference, and then we'll move out there. And so he's sending me photos of, here's the apartments I'm looking at. Here's one I found. I'm fixing it up. He's sending me these photos. He's coming home still, but like back to me, but not as often as I would like. And one or two times when I tried to get a hold of him, he didn't answer. And so then I'm emailing and I'm phoning and I'm like, what is going on here? But he always had a reason, always had an excuse. And then 2020 comes and I start hearing about this virus, and it's like February, and I'm thinking, I hope it doesn't get any worse, because my conference is in April. And I emailed him, said, I'm worried about it. He said, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's never going to get here. But I kept watching it. And then finally in March, I had to either make my deposit or let the conference go. And I decided, you know what? I'm so concerned about this. I do not want to expose anybody to this. And ticket sales had been wonderful because it was a first of its kind event. He had set up my website. He was very helpful. I didn't know anything about hosting conferences or anything. He said, I've hosted tons of conferences. I'll set up the website for you. And I said, well, I can't. I don't know how I can pay you for that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Set up the website, set up the payment system. I was so naive. I wasn't using Zoom or working with people online at this point, so I didn't really know anything about it. So he sets all that up. So I've sold all these tickets and it seems wonderful. And then finally I pulled the plug. So March 7th, I emailed him and I said, I need to talk to you. I've decided to postpone or cancel the conference, and I'm really struggling emotionally with it. No answer. The next day, I get an email from him on March 8th, and he says, I can't do this anymore. I have to be here for my children, and I'm really sorry, and too bad. And I am once again totally blindsided. And now, a few days later, I got a priority mail package, and it was from the landlord saying the rent had been late 3 times. That's grounds for being kicked out in British Columbia. I always gave him my portion of the rent money. My daughter and I gave it to him. He never told me that he ever was late. So the landlord says, you got to get out immediately. But by now, it's the COVID is here, and people are dying, and people are terrified and don't know what's going on. My daughter that's living with me is severely immune compromised. And so I said to the landlord, please, here's what's happened. Don't kick me out. I have to find another place, and I can't have looky-loos coming through potentially with my daughter. It could kill her. So I had to go to arbitration and get all this stuff. And in the meantime, I started paying back people for the ticket money for the conference. My name is on it. My integrity is on the line. Of course, I'm going to refund people. So I talked to another friend of mine that was really helping me promote the conference. And she said, I smell something rotten. I want us to start repaying the people, finish all the repayments as quick as we can. So that's what we did for the next 2 days. We're just refunding. And then suddenly we can't take any more. We can't pay back any more money. And he emails me and he says, stop right now. This isn't your money. This is my money. It was the ticket money. It was the ticket money. So I've got all these things going on at once. I'm like, oh my God, I thought my life fell apart before, but this is my life really, really falling apart. And then a couple of days later, I get a phone call and it is his wife.
Oh my gosh.
Wife that he's still married to, that he is not separated from. And she tells me who she is and says that she's watched our whole relationship online. And I said, why didn't you reach out to me? I would have reached out to you. And
a whole year and a half.
She said, you're not the first one that he's done this to. Here was another red flag. This was just around the time he was moving in with me, first of all. And I said, well, let's talk finances. I don't carry a lot of debt at all. And I only have one credit card. He had a stack of credit cards. I have never seen so many credit cards in my life. And I said, what do you need all those for? And he said, they're just for all sorts of different things. And I get them when I'm, opening new businesses for the construction, all this kind of stuff. He had an answer for everything. His wife tells me a bunch of those cards he took out in her name, that he owes tens of thousands of dollars. And she says to me, he cheated on you the whole time he was with you. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, the whole time. Anytime he came back here, he was with me. She said, he took me and my youngest daughter on vacation to a tropical place, and he stayed in the shade the whole time. So when he came back to you, he wouldn't have a suntan, and you wouldn't. And so my mind is reeling as this person is telling me this, and he's not being forthcoming at all. He's not answering my emails. It's just like you're going 100 miles an hour into a brick wall. And then his wife is just pouring salt in the wound. She took some kind of weird pleasure, I think, in this. And so it was really hard to understand. And I'm trying to explain to my family what's going on, and explain to my supporters, the people who had bought the tickets. And so I'm keeping very fastidious notes about who got fully reimbursed, who didn't, who has told me I can just give them a free ticket, when I do the concert, or the conference, whenever it happens. So trying to keep track of all those things. And then I had to try and find another place to live. And so that also was very tricky. But so that was the end of that relationship. Unfortunately, he had my business name, Divorcing Religion, and he had the website. I wanted it all transferred to me, obviously. And he made it very, very difficult. It was just a lot of, everything cost a lot more money. And people were saying to me, go after him, sue him, take him to court, because it was thousands and thousands of dollars. And so I reached out to a lawyer for a consultation, and they said, you know what, it's just going to be small claims court, because it wasn't 25,000. It might've been like 10,000 or whatever. And I had to look at the amount of energy that I had, like emotional energy and physical stamina at that time. And I was like, I can't even do it. It's all I can do to get out of bed every day and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. It was such a horrible time, so difficult. So I didn't sue him.
I'm surprised that you couldn't sue him for your domains back, for all the information that he literally stole from you.
He eventually gave them back. I would say it took about maybe 6 months of back and forth, eventually, email type stuff. Yeah. So I really, when I'm looking back now, I'm like, oh my God, there were so many red flags. But let me tell you, a red flag looks like a normal flag if you're wearing rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
You're going to miss. It's not going to look like a red flag. And every tiny little check that I had that made me go, ooh, something's not right, he would have a reason. He would have an excuse that sounded viable. And he's an excellent liar, just will lie to your face. Here's another one that I left out. When he eventually got fired from a job here, then he took a job as doing construction stuff in another city a few hours away. And so, I wasn't thrilled with it, but oh well, he'd come back on the weekends and stuff. And then he says, well, you come out to me, come out to the work site, and you can stay in the hotel where I am and stuff. And so I get there, and we're in this little ice cream shop. And a woman comes up to him and says, so-and-so, what, you got another girlfriend? And I said, what? And he's like, oh, you're such a kidder. You're so funny. Haha. Like he was being really snide and sarcastic to her. And I just thought, what a weird thing for her to say.
Interesting. So what do you think it was that I see your story. I can see how you can be blinded by some things. I can see how he can pull the wool over your eyes with the weaving of the lies. What do you think it is that you, looking back, could have been in a different headspace? So how do you think you could have handled some of these red flags?
I think I could have been and might have been less vulnerable if I was financially stable. I was still trying to regroup myself after losing the previous relationship. So, and this happens with women a lot. We are usually not the ones that are making as much money as men in the relationship. At least that is how it has been through the 70s, 80s, 90s, like that. So I think that can add an element of desperation for women. And of course, remember too, I'm still recovering from my broken heart. And here's someone who's funny and smart and engaging, and they think I'm valuable and they want to spend time with me. He was super encouraging about all my business ideas. Boy, oh boy, was he supportive.
I'm sure he was. How do you think it, looking at a relationship that is healthy in the normalcy of getting to know each other and compliments and growing and caring for each other, how do you see the difference? Are there glowing differences that you can see between what a sociopath or a con man who pushes this kind of agenda? How do you think you can say the differences are for women or men to kind of compare? I mean, because is there a bigger difference between someone who's like, oh, I'm really supportive, and oh, you're amazing, and oh, let's be together, to somebody who is genuinely saying, I support you, or I want to be with you?
I think it can be very hard to tell, because if you are an honest person, and it's honest people who get conned and get taken advantage of, because it's like a currency of trust. We're trustworthy. We expect other people to be trustworthy. And sometimes there is almost no way to protect yourself. There are just some bad apples out there that are hell-bent on creating destruction, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake, and they maybe even get off on it, get some kind of pleasure out of it. And so also another thing that might have been helpful, if he was local, if I could meet other people that knew him, that would vouch for him. I never got to talk to any of his daughters. I could have insisted on that. Of course, he could have put anybody on, I guess, and said that they were them. But I trusted him and believed him when he said, yes, the divorce, I've met with the lawyer a number of times and it's going through. And here are photos of the apartment that I'm fixing up for you. And so I said, when his wife called, I said, was any of what he told me true?
Mhm.
And I said, what about this and this and this? And she said, oh yeah, those are true. Those are, real things that actually happened, or real things in his life. But she said his intention was to move me and my daughter to Ontario. And so he would have his cake and eat it too. So then his actual wife and family would be there, and we would be there. And I don't know, I guess he just thought I wouldn't clue into it. I don't know. I hadn't clued in so far. I so desperately wanted him to be a person of integrity, and he
Right.
was not.
Well, I think that a lot of us want, we project onto the people that we are attracted to or want to be with what we want them to be rather than what they are. So did he tell his wife that he was working in these other towns and that's why he was gone for so long?
Yes, but she must have known more about what was going on, because she said that she saw our photos and she guessed that I must just be fine. She said, well, I just figured that kind of woman that's fine with being with a married man. So, I mean, obviously she's got her own issues, and because she said it's happened over and over again. I said, why are you staying with this person? But my job wasn't to care for her. My job was to care for myself. And I think another thing that made me vulnerable was having grown up in a very religious home, and having done so as a female in a patriarchal environment. So submission to authority, obedience to authority. I saw my mom bend over backwards for my dad to try and make him happy and keep the peace, even though he was not a mentally well person. So she was my example of how you deal with relationships. You ignore as much as you can possibly ignore. So some of those things also, I think, made me more vulnerable.
To it.
So,
I do see that.
Can I say something? Because
Yeah.
I hear this story and I understand how painful it was. And at the same time, this is not your story. This is, you've triumphed over this now. Tell us about how you bounced back. Because, we could easily get, caught up in the drama and sympathize. And this sucks. I hate that this happened to you. I'm sorry. But what I'm really interested in is who you became out of this and this experience, and also your life experience that had you write your book, because you wrote this book and I'm intrigued. So how can you share with us your resilience and power in the face of this crappy experience? It sounds like it sucked, but who cares now? I'm not trying to minimize it, but let that go, the jerk.
Yes.
Tell us
Thank
who you
you
are and how you transformed yourself.
I love it. And you used one of my favorite words, resilience.
Yeah.
And so I was extremely fortunate while I was going through this. I had a friend in the United States, far away, like 10,000 miles away. And I knew them through some of the religious trauma groups that I was involved with. So we knew each other online, and we'd met once in person at a conference, and just had a very collegial, kind, nice relationship. And he saw what was going on. He had actually bought a ticket. He was going to come all the way from Mississippi to Vancouver for my event to support me.
What was this conference about, by the way?
The conference on religious trauma, also called CORT, C-O-R-T. It was CORT 2020 that I was putting together. And so he was one of the people I had to contact and say, I have to give you your money back. And he'd bought a plane or a train ticket and everything. And he said, I am so horrified by what you're going through. He said, I will not take any money back from you. Take my money and put it towards paying off your debt. I'm very concerned for you. And if you need a friend to talk to, I'm here. And he was as good as his word. And so I would FaceTime him. I'd be ugly crying. I'd be, yelling and swearing. And he was just like, let it out. You got to let it out. Better out than in. And so he became such a good friend. And this is part of resilience, is making sure we have some people in our corner that we can depend on. So he was a wonderful help. So I ended up finding a place. My mom helped me with a down payment on an older mobile home, and I was able to move in. So my daughter and I safely moved in there. And then I decided, you know what, I'm well enough, feeling healthy enough now, I'm going to transition to an online conference. And I'd never done that. They were just all starting to happen then. And so then I was able to do that. And that was a success. And I kept talking with my gentleman friend. And eventually he said, if you ever are ready to date again, years in the future, I would like you to consider me. And I already knew he was a man of great integrity. And he is 22 years my senior. He's quite a bit older, both been married before. And I said, you know what, I'll really have to think about that, because my heart has been through so much. I don't know if I'm ready, because of course, 22 years sooner, he could pass away sooner. But we just kept talking and being friends. And then eventually he came out to visit, and my business was taking off, my counseling business, which I transitioned to online. And I continued educating myself about religious trauma and became a religious trauma recovery coach. And then my friend came out here and he met all my family, and he's so delightful. And he said, I never want to rush you. I never want you to do anything you don't want to do. And he said, if you'd like to come to the United States, I'd love to introduce you to my children. So that was the next thing. And he took me all around the southern states where I'd never been. So he was holding nothing back. He was hiding nothing. And he said, I realize how important transparency is for you. And then on one of those trips, he proposed to me, which was just a delight. And then we were married later that year. And things have just kept going. We ended up being in a documentary together, which opened in Sweden. So we flew out to Sweden, and we were there for the documentary about religious trauma. I finished my book, and of course he factors into my book, and my stories are in my book, the memoir portion, including this one I've been sharing with you.
We're 42 minutes into this, and now we get the punchline. So this whole thing is backwards. You have this triumph, this huge, opportunity. This is the story, and we're talking about all the drama. Who gives a shit about the drama?
We talk about the drama, Steve, so that other people can be aware that it happens, and that it is relatable, so people understand, that things happen, and that it's not always about these perfect dating experiences. We're here to teach people about all these different types of dating experiences so that we can give them advice and help them through it, and know that they're not alone.
And recovery is possible. Recovery is possible. My life now looks so different from what it looked like then. And if someone had said to me, just hang on, girl, just hang on, something so much better than you ever imagined, it's just around the corner.
Isn't that an example of faith?
Yeah.
So I know that you're about divorcing religion, and I'm not talking about religious faith, but faith.
Just faith.
You mean faith in humanity? Faith in people?
Faith that there's a different possibilities in life, that there's faith that you're going to get what you desire or deserve or want,
I'll tell you what I had faith in. I had faith in myself, because I had already been through many horrible things, which are in the memoir. I managed to get up every time, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And sometimes life is going to knock you down. You decide whether you're going to get back up again. And with each relationship that ended in tragedy, I learned from it. I
Well,
learned from it and I applied that to myself. And looking forward, I thought, I'll never put up with this again. I'll never put up with that again. Watching for those red flags instead of wearing the rose colored glasses. So saying to him, why did your first marriage end? What's your relationship like with her now? And how are you on speaking terms with your kids? Like asking really uncomfortable questions that you need to be able to ask. You should be able to ask of a partner.
Well, it doesn't take a weak person to leave a religion. A very strong, powerful, doing a lot for that religious culture. It does not take a weak person to leave that. So having the strength to learn and grow through all the different dating traumas you did to get to the place where you are now, it's a journey. And, we love to know about people's journeys. Now, I do have a couple of advice for the audience today. As a takeaway from Janice's story, and some advice from someone who has also been through it, is the first is trust your gut. If something feels off, but you can't put your finger on it, don't ignore it. Don't rush. Sociopaths often try to accelerate intimacy, money decisions, or life changes.
Yes.
Verify, don't believe. Double check the stories. Work and finances. If someone is defensive about transparency, that's a red fucking flag. Look for consistency. Do their words match their actions over time? Two more. Build a support system. Con men thrive in isolation. Keep friends and family in the loop about all your new relationships. And last but not least, know the patterns. Sociopaths often use charm, love bombing, guilt, victim stories to hook their targets. So that's always been my takeaway on that type of relationship, that kind of thing. So there.
Wow. And when I was being honest with people about what was going on, most of the people were quite supportive and, they felt they had empathy for me. But I definitely heard from people saying, well, what kind of a counselor are you? You should have known better. You should have seen the signs. And that was very painful. That made me really sad. I felt like, oh, now people are thinking less of my skills. But if anything, at this point, I want other people to learn from what I went through. I'm just a person like any other person. And I had blinders on because I wanted things to be a certain way. So
it doesn't exempt you because you're a therapist. It doesn't exempt you. Right. You're human. What were you saying, Steve?
What was the one thing you thought you wanted the most, that your deepest desire that had you overlook everything?
Maybe stability. Yeah. Because I had come out of a very long marriage. Yeah. Yeah. And because I was still, kind of reeling from the previous relationship. So stability, but also that desire for someone to desire me. And I think that's a really common thing.
Yeah. I think the journey of healing should trump the journey of finding a new person after a relationship. Mm-hmm. Especially 100%. A long-term relationship. Because when you heal after a big, long lifetime of being with somebody and things change, once you've started that journey, your whole life changes, your whole perspective changes. You're no longer a victim. You're no longer not worthy, not good enough, not loved. You get that from other sources and from your friends and your family and yourself. And then once you've learned to heal, you start finding better people for yourself, people who aren't going to take advantage.
Sometimes our blind spots are not exposed to us. We can't see them until we get in a situation and we're looking back with hindsight. And we're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that I had codependent traits. Now I know that. I didn't know that I was too trusting. Now I know that. And so you get to tell the story however you want to tell it, because there's two things. There's what actually happens, and then there's the story we tell ourselves about
Yeah.
what happened. So I feel like my story is one of resiliency, of lessons learned, and I'm truly living a beautiful life. I have a podcast, Divorcing Religion podcast, my book, my YouTube channel. I'm helping people. I'm working with people, hopefully leaving this world a better place than I found it.
I love it. Well, we're really grateful. I think you do just that, Janice. Thank you. And we really appreciate you coming on today and talking about your story and showing that, just the normal, wonderful, average person can be sucked into drama, trauma, and bullshit and survive and make it. So, and be a better person to help others. I love that very much. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being with us.
We appreciate it. Thanks for being here again, Steve, and Janice for being our amazing guests. All the listeners out there, thank you for coming back each week. We love to have you. So same time, same place next week. And until then, let's just keep this shit real.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.